I'm going to use notes today. I'm sorry, I don't normally like to use my iPad, but something's been going on this week. I don't know if you noticed. And I haven't left my television in 4 days, and I've slept about 3 hours. So if you'll forgive me while I use my iPad to talk to you. I'm really thrilled to be here with you today. I'm going to share just my personal story, and I know how boring it is to sit and listen to details of somebody's personal life that you really don't know, but I hope when you leave today that you are inspired to take an occasion or an event that has happened to you and turn that into something good and meaningful and a charge in your life. I think we all can agree that we've had some pretty crappy things happen to us, but I think many of us here and many of us watching maybe have had life-altering events that have occurred that we really didn't know what to do with, and that's kind of what I want to talk to you today about. But first, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I popped out of my biological mother's womb very, 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 very gay. I already knew all the lyrics to Hamilton in 1973 when I was born. So just a caveat, only gay people can use gay stereotype jokes. Just going to put that right up front. So I get 2 of them, and that's all I have for today. But I grew up in rural Oklahoma, up northeast, about half an hour outside of Tulsa, where the only gay person that I knew when I was in high school was this guy that worked at Taco Bell in Sand Springs, Oklahoma. So yes, I would go stalk the Taco Bell parking lot. This was before Will and Grace. This is before gay television characters and movies. So this is the only one I knew. So I remember he worked the drive-thru, and I remember just watching him sling tacos at night thinking, well, look at there, that's a gay person. That's interesting. I grew up in the Baptist church, and when I say grew up in the Baptist church, you don't just grow up in the Baptist church. You are all in the Baptist church. And I grew up in a little small Baptist church there in my community. I was very active in that church. I played piano on Sunday mornings. I led the youth. I led worship services, all kinds of things. I was one of those little church kids that all the old ladies would come up and say, oh, you're going to be famous one day. Ooh, well, I wasn't, but thank you, little old ladies. And living through that experience and that church and absorbing that teaching, there's probably little surprise that I felt the call to go straight. So I'm going to just give you a little caveat here. I'm not telling you or anybody on this audience what to believe. But what I am going to encourage you today is listen to my experience, and perhaps that lets you and allows you to shape how you treat others based on what you believe. I'm not here to tell you what's wrong or right biblically. I am here to share my experience and let you take that and do with what you like. So once I got through high school, which was not a fun experience, I did, because I had decided to go straight, I ended up at a school in central Oklahoma, small school, big reputation. We call it the Baylor of the North, Oklahoma Baptist University in Shawnee, Oklahoma. And I thought to myself, well, if anything or if any place is going to help me go straight, well, that's going to be Oklahoma Baptist University. Yeah, that lasted about a year. It didn't hold. And I decided, maybe being straight is not in my near future. And I decided to stay at the university anyway. I'd already built up quite a collection of friends, obviously. I'd spent a lot of time in my education at this school. At OBU, I was kind of a rising star in the music community there, pretty well-known music school. And the university really liked to kind of trot me out and have me play piano or trumpet or sing, or I would travel throughout Oklahoma doing youth worship services. I actually even held a tiny little church job at Hazeldale Baptist Church in Oklahoma. All the time hiding and concealing my sexuality for obvious reasons. It wasn't until my junior year of college that rumors about my sexuality began to circulate throughout the university. And I started getting phone calls from friends saying, we've been called, I mean, this is like a movie, we've been called into the dean's office and they're asking questions about you. So I thought, well, now's just the time to take the bull by the horns. I grabbed a very trusted advisor who was my choir director there, Nancy Hill Cobb, one of the most amazing people in the world. And she went in with me to the dean of students' office, and I just came out. By that point, it was common knowledge. So they didn't really care for that. So to stay at the university and finish out my schooling, I had to sign a contract. And that contract basically had two major points in it. Number one, I would not be involved in homosexual activity while a student at OBU. So I went back to my dorm and boxed up all my Madonna CDs and threw them out. That was my second gay stereotype joke. You're welcome. So no homosexual activity, whatever the hell that means, and that I would seek reparative therapy. So I signed this contract. I wanted to finish school. I went to see my therapist that they assigned to me, and within 15 minutes, he said I could leave. And to his credit, he said to me, if you don't want to be here, there's no reason for you to be here, which I really thought was pretty incredible. It was not what I was expecting. However, the university, on the other hand, did not find that incredible. And they decided that I had been in violation of my contract because I was not seeking reparative therapy. So they tried to kick me out the first time. Luckily, I had some close friends and some close teacher mentors there that were able to appeal that, and OBU decided to allow me to stay under the terms of the contract, that I would not be involved in, again, quote unquote, homosexual activity. I was allowed to finish school. So, flash forward about 6 months. I find myself in my senior year at OBU, and I'm student teaching at a high school in Oklahoma City. Now, Oklahoma City was, the big metroplex of Oklahoma City was about half an hour outside of Shawnee, where my school was. So on the weekends, whenever we would finish up high school teaching, I wouldn't want to go back. I would want to spend time with my gay friends in Oklahoma City. Now, when you're 20 years old in Oklahoma City in the early 90s, there's just not a whole lot you can do, except probably hang out in parking lots of gay establishments. And that's what we did as kids. We just hung out, and then that was, our version of a gay bar in the early 90s. So I didn't want to drive back to Shawnee that night, so I decided to just wait for my friends. So I'm hanging out in this parking lot, and I meet these two guys. These two guys tell me they're from California, and they're visiting, and they heard this was a gay area of Oklahoma City. And I'm like, well, indeed it is, and nice to meet you. And we spent a few hours together. And by that time, the security at the place, saw us kids hanging out in the parking lot, and like, you kids have to find somewhere else to go. So, they're like, where can we go? And these guys wanted me to come back with them to their hotel room that they said they had gotten. Instead, I said, well, there was a big, giant public park nearby. This is at night. I knew it would be open, so they're like, okay, we'll go hang out there. So we're hanging out at this park, and you can kind of hear where this story is going. So over some time while hanging out with these guys, I'm walking in this park and just talking, and them continually trying to get me to leave with them, I began to feel that little tug that this was not a good situation to be in. And whenever I felt that, and I excused myself, I heard one of them behind me say very clearly, "Get him." And what happened next is a little bit of a blur. I can't tell you if it was 5 minutes or if it was 20 minutes, but I do know that they tackled me, and I laid there while they took giant boulders. Come to find out, we found the rocks with my blood on them, pounded me with the boulders, jumped up and down, pounded me with their fists and their feet, dislocated my hips, hurt my lungs, scars all over my face, and ran off. I still to this day feel like that if we hadn't been in a public place, that I might have been Matthew Shepard before Matthew Shepard was known. I was very lucky that night, and somebody found me, called the ambulance, and I was taken to the hospital. So A lot of that is a blur, but I will tell you this. When I look back and think about that night and think about what happened to me, I can tell you that I remember three things. I remember feeling, A, that I deserved it. I remember feeling, B, that I asked for it. And then I remember feeling this overwhelming sense of shame that I was put in this position. I don't remember the physical pain. I don't remember anything about it other than those feelings of guilt and shame that I had been holding on to for so very long. I'm not Brené Brown, I promise you. It didn't dawn on me till quite a bit later, the situation that I could have found myself in. And to this very day, I'm very thankful that we had been in a public place and at least in that safety. So because I have a little bit of a time crunch here, I'm going to move forward. When I recovered from this attack, after about a month and a half, I went back to teaching and to school. And I received a phone call one afternoon while I was at the high school from the administration at Oklahoma Baptist University. And all they said was, we found out the circumstance of your attack, and we're telling you that you are no longer a student at the university. And when I asked why, they said, we have determined that you were involved in homosexual activity. So that hurt me more than the beating, I have to tell you. And by the time we had come to this point, I could appeal and stay at the university. It would add about another half of a year to my education, or I could just be done with it. And I decided I was done with it. And I left and finished up my degree about a year later. You all understand how credits work. About a year later at a public school in Oklahoma. So that leads me to today. I tell you all that so I can kind of flash forward and share with you what I've learned from that experience today. And what I finished up my schooling, my grad school at SMU, as you heard Matt say, and I decided music wasn't for me anymore, so I spent about 15 years in marketing and design. As a music major, I decided I want to make money heading out of school, so I went that direction. And it wasn't until probably about 12 years later that I decided to join this organization called the Turtle Creek Chorale. So the Turtle Creek Chorale is a pretty well-known men's chorus, been around 41 years, and it's made up of predominantly gay men. And I joined to be a singer. I needed music back in my life. And when I joined that organization, something awoke in me, and I felt a passion for music that I had never felt in my entire life, just sitting up there and singing. And again, to just save time, flash forward about 10 years later, I found myself through a variety of circumstances to be at the head of this organization as their conductor. So why do I tell you all this? And I want to challenge you today with this idea that when this happened to me and I found my place and I found my tribe, I also found my release valve for all the anger that had been stored up, that held so much of my shame. I found this amazing group of people where I had influence to change lives. And I discovered that in me, I had the power from those experiences that happened many years before. I had the power from those experiences to take and use this group of men to truly change lives and save lives. And I know this is going to sound outrageous, but now I look back and I view what happened to me during that time as the best gift I could have received, because it built in me a capacity for, I believe, empathy that I never would have had, and I never would have been able to lead this amazing group of men. So I've made it my purpose as the conductor of this ensemble to change lives. I don't want to be a choir that just stands up on stage and sings pretty and looks pretty, although we look really pretty. I want to use this tool that I have at my disposal to change lives. So we all have a sphere of influence. It might not be on a grand level. Your influence might lie with your family or your study group or your friends or your church. You have some sphere of influence. And I'm here to tell you that you can use that influence to create good, to change lives. And you might have to look for it, but it's all there. Your influence might be that you have some political ambition since we're in that time. You have an amazing opportunity to change lives through that. So I'm going to leave you with today, I'm running just a little ahead of time, over time, but I wanted to leave you with a piece of music and something I believe that we are doing that is incredibly important. And this is the culmination and kind of fruition of all that pain that I had, is that we have started a program called the You Are Light Project. And the You Are Light Project speaks and sings directly to shame and suicide in youth. Before coronavirus, we were able to go out and sing to high schools and share with them these beautiful pieces of music. Now it has to be virtual. But if all those events had not occurred and happened to me years ago, I never would have had the privilege and mission to do something like this with this amazing group of men. So I want to share with you in closing just one piece of music from this project. This is from a concert about 2 years ago. You might see Matt in here. This is an anti-suicide piece called Please Stay by Jake Runestad. No, don't go, don't go.
is no longer in the hands of someone else. I realize that what people say about me reflects who they are, not who I am.
It's okay to be a work in progress. Sharing your feelings doesn't make you weak. I'm glad I asked for help instead of doing it all alone.
All I can think about is Justin. I wish he kept living.
It was hard as hell, but I kept living.
One person took the time to listen and understand. Sometimes that's all it takes.
Thanks for having me today. Thank you.